Hey, drinking buddies, Happy New Year! Thanks so much for all your support in 2020. We're starting off 2021 with pop-up events conveniently located close to you, from San Diego to Torrance. Pre-order Drinking Buddy snacks along with your favorite Japanese foods from Okayama Kobo Bakery, Sujita Ramen, Tanota Takoyaki, Shinsengumi Yakitori, and more. You can get your fix starting on Wednesday, January 13th at The Rice in Foothill Ranch. Do you like beef bowls? If you haven't had one before, they're a delicious comfort food with savory slices of prime beef and slowly simmered onions on top of a steamy bed of rice. You can pick one up between 3 and 4 p.m. on the 13th, as long as you pre-order now. Check the link in this episode's description to get your piping hot beef bowl. See you next week.
Okay, I can read Google Analytics too. That doesn't mean anything to me. What insights do you have for me from that, right? What are you going to do about these numbers?
This is the Drinking Buddy Show, where we explore food, craft, beverage pairings, and the entrepreneurs and tastemakers behind them. I'm Frank, founder of Drinking Buddy Artisan Snacks. On today's show, digital marketer Mark Auyoung joins us from Costa Mesa, California. I often have on entrepreneurs in the craft beverage space, but I wanted to start off 2021 with Mark to get his insights into a skill set that all entrepreneurs need, digital marketing. Mark has helped hundreds of small business people get their products and services online using a data-driven process to grow brand awareness and conversion. If you're running a business or even just thinking about starting one in 2021, then you need to listen in.
My name is Mark Auyoung. I am a digital marketer, and I joined the whole digital marketing space about 3 years ago. My bachelor's was in information systems and marketing at Cal State Fullerton, and while there, I was in a couple of clubs. Shout out to American Marketing Association. Woot woot. But yeah, I mean, the kind of start of my whole digital marketing game was this internship that I got, luckily or unluckily, however you want to view it, because it was an unpaid internship. It was essentially a social media role. Post this, find out generally what these analytics mean. A really valuable insight that I pulled out of that experience was like a lot of businesses actually don't, surprisingly, for how much money they put into marketing, they don't really know what it is. It's just kind of like it's this black box. But I think a lot of them kind of use digital marketing interchangeably with posting on Instagram. And that's kind of something that I found out while in my internship and kind of like held on until now. And it kind of seems like it hasn't changed too much just based off of some people I've talked to, but you know, there's definitely a whole world out there. So after that fantastic internship, I landed a position at an e-commerce agency. And they were trying to break into the digital marketing sphere, and they were trying to go at it from like all angles. They're trying to go at it from like SEO, PPC, SMM, so like search engine optimization, pay-per-click, social media marketing, basically everything digital marketing, because it's like a hot commodity. So with that being said, you know, being a fresh grad and trying to get into the field and stuff, it was very tough. But I think pretty much what I did there was helped build out that the SEO department and their paid media department. I mean, from there, it was a lot of learning, obviously, and trying to understand these channels, these esoteric channels. When someone's like, "Hey, could you flip on the SEO switch for me?" Right? And understanding what that means and explaining to them, like, "Hey, that's, you know, you can't flip on a switch. It's not just the Yoast plugin; it's an entire industry." But working there really helped me develop my speaking skills about digital marketing, and therefore led me to the digital marketing boot camp where Frank and I met, and my TA there. So being in an instructor role there and speaking and spreading the good digital marketing word. Besides that, now, unfortunately with COVID, I was laid off from the company, but I kind of took it in stride, and I started my own consulting and freelance space. I'm helping small businesses realize their potential in the digital space. My philosophy on digital marketing is that the product should be evaluated based off of its quality rather than the size of your marketing budget. And, you know, in a space where there's so many huge players in digital marketing, you know, it's really hard for small businesses to kind of get out there and get their name out there. So I think now it's more important than ever to build a niche. So I help small businesses build the foundation of their digital marketing presence, and I equip them with the knowledge of how to use and interpret it.
So why did you want to go into digital marketing? I mean, you have an information sciences degree, which I think you can go in a lot of different directions. What was it about digital marketing itself that made you want to get into it? Was it just that internship and that's how you ended up in it?
Digital marketing in particular, because funny enough, the first major I had declared in college was like psychology. So I was like, oh, I want to understand how people work. But then at the same time, going to Cal State Fullerton, they're known for their business school. And I was like, I took a Psych 101 class and I got a C. I was like, maybe I don't want to be a psychologist. I'm not meant to be a psychologist. But I'm really interested in human behavior. And I think exploring the school of business and seeing what concentrations it had to offer, marketing was the most human in my eyes. Besides that, I think it's pretty human to kind of understand consumer behavior. But in terms of the information systems part of my major, I think it just ties in very well. Well, first of all, data is the new oil. Facebook and Google and all these companies are selling your data, but they're making millions off of it. And so understanding data, but at the same time, understanding what that data means and interpreting it. Because if you think about it from a marketing standpoint, right, data is just numbers until you put some context to it. And I think knowing how to interpret data and bring it into the marketing world and, making sense of it, I think those two work very well together. And I guess it just kind of goes back to my desire to understand human behavior, understand consumer behavior, and help people that way. Marketing is, in its essence, helping people connect to businesses that can provide solutions to their problems.
And I think it's very interesting that Google's biggest mission for their search is to provide the best, most relevant answer for any query, anytime, anywhere.
Definitely. I mean, Google's been in the game for a while, and, despite them having essentially like a monopoly over the search engine field. I don't know if they have a monopoly. Don't sue me, Google. I love your products, please. Despite them being like this monopoly, I think they've really rightfully earned their place. If you do any searches on Google, typically it's almost instantaneous. And the fact that there's this general consumer understanding that, if you search something, you're going to get an answer immediately. And the fact that we're getting impatient just goes to show that they're doing their job correctly, right? Because they are able to provide those answers. And that's why we're expecting them to be faster. It's working. If it didn't work, the first consideration wouldn't be to make it faster, right? So they've definitely kind of earned their spot at the top. But, with all the different data laws and stuff like that, and personal data breaches and stuff like that, I think there is definitely room for growth, though, in this industry. You see like DuckDuckGo and like a couple of other competitors coming in, and their main selling point is, hey, we don't track any data. But some of the flexibility, some of the convenience that we have from using Google is because of that data tracking. And so it's really finding that fine line or whatever it is that makes people comfortable, but not creeped out is the big thing.
Sure. I think it's really important for people like myself, small business owners, to understand digital marketing. That's the mission of your company now, that you're consulting to small businesses that, like you've given the example, someone asking you to just turn on the SEO switch. And now that I've gone through the boot camp, I understand why that doesn't work. that is not a thing. You can't just turn on a switch. It's a long process and a continual process. So I wanted to have you evaluate a couple of the products we have. So we have the snacks that I gave you.
Sure.
And then take us through your process as to how you would recommend to someone to market it, because we have a lot of people now, especially with the pandemic, that may have never digitally marketed. Maybe they just had, walk-in traffic to their restaurant, or they had a brewery and they posted pictures of their beers online, but they didn't really market. So I wanted you to take me through the journey of looking at a product and then thinking about, well, how do we get this online and how do we get people's attention?
Sure. All right. Well, We got a couple of snacks here. So which one should we start off with? I got
which one did you like?
It's a podcast, you can't see this.
Yes, so he's got, to explain to the listeners, he's got the Ryu Senbei, which is the chili oil rice cakes. The other one is the wasabi shoyu mayo, which is wasabi, soy sauce, and mayonnaise. Both rice cakes, both meant to be enjoyed with a beverage.
All right. Well,
Mark, you choose.
Yes, sir. I mean, I definitely am not the hugest fan of wasabi. However, just a disclaimer, I did try this beforehand. It was very palatable, so highly recommend. The mayonnaise just kind of like, made it smoother. So I will pause on that, but I will, eat the rice pancake, and it will be obnoxiously loud.
It's real.
ASMR here.
Yeah, it's real.
Okay, so I'm pairing it with this Truly's mango.
Ooh.
Let's see here. Mm-hmm. Ow! Oh my gosh, this thing. Delicious. 10 out of 10. It reminds me of like these crackers I had when I was a kid. Small rice crackers, and they had like the seaweed wrap around it.
Sure. It's probably the same style as senbei, Japanese rice cake.
Oh, okay. So that's the actual style of the snack. Okay, interesting. Yeah. The more you know.
Yeah, a really common one would be something with nori or the seaweed on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's the snack that I had in mind for sure.
Mark, you're very young, younger than me, and I thought it was interesting that you chose a seltzer as your drink to pair with your snack, because I've talked about on the show before, younger people like to have seltzers. Yeah. Can you tell me why you chose a seltzer? Because I always like to understand this stuff.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to dig into my consumer behavior here a little bit. I think it's a mixture of convenience and flavor for me personally. Convenience because it's everywhere. It's been advertised everywhere. I'm not sure if you remember those memes about like White Claw. It's like, ain't no laws when you're drinking claws. It's like, okay. Questionable, but it's catchy. So the idea of seltzers kind of came along, and it resonated amongst a crowd who was more conscious of what they're putting into their bodies. Drinking beer, you get that old adage about getting a beer belly and all that stuff. But when you're drinking a seltzer, it feels refreshing, and I think they really doubled down on that because most of their flavors are like fruits, very light, very refreshing, and it kind of takes care of that heaviness you get from beer. Well, no, specifically beer, right? So if I'm not trying to get trashed, but I'm also not feeling like I want to get really bloated, I would probably go for something like a seltzer. And that's kind of why I go for it. Also, I don't know, it's just light. It's just fun. It's in a fun can. It reminds me of like Perrier.
Sure.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed with seltzers is they will advertise how many calories they have, and good luck finding a beer if it's not a major beer brand, not a craft beer, but a major brand that has a light beer focused on health conscious people. You're not seeing calories on a craft beer. They're not going to tell you. Why would they do that? They're not going to tell you how many thousands of calories you're consuming in one can. So for example, with a Truly seltzer, you're getting a 5% alcohol, but 100 calories.
Yeah.
So exactly, I understand it. I get it. If you don't want the dad bod, the beer belly, which happens in your 30s very easily and older. I get it. When we come back, Mark shares his top 4 digital marketing tips for small businesses in 2021. Thanks for listening so far. If you enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Then head to www.thedrinkingbuddyshop.com and pick up some tasty pub snacks, barware, and more. Every purchase he makes helps us support small family-owned businesses in rural Japan and bring you more delicious, unique snacks to pair with your favorite beverages. Special thanks to all of you that have already started enjoying our snacks and sharing them with your buddies.
So I don't know if I can do like a product breakdown right now for you in terms of like getting it from start to finish, because that would take days on days on days. And however, I do have some great tips for anyone that's jumping into the digital space, and some tips specifically for small businesses. That might seem a little broad, but I guarantee you, if this is your first kind of foray into digital marketing, keeping these top of mind will get you to a place in your digital marketing presence that's a lot further and not a lot has a much sturdier kind of foundation. The first tip that I have for literally any business owner, understand your industry's digital space. Let the data guide you. So what that means is if you are, let's say, for example, let's do Drinking Buddy, all right? You're coming into the space and you want to start ranking for keywords or something, right? Or you want to start creating content on Instagram and gain a following, or you want to generate an email list. I think what a lot of small business owners tend to do is they go do some research about these different channels and they see these like 5 things you must do or like 10 things you must do and stuff like that. And they just kind of follow it. And not that there's a problem with that, there's definitely best practices, but understand your space, right? Like I mentioned before, my digital marketing background started from like an SEO perspective. So I look at everything from a search engine perspective. And with that being said, there's a process in search engine optimization called keyword research. And essentially what that is looking up keywords that people might potentially search and finding if there's volume behind it and trying to rank for those keywords. And so during the keyword research process, there's tools out there that let you see how much search volume is out there for a particular keyword. And so what I mean by understanding your industry's digital space is to look at stuff like that. Look at where the industry currently is. If you're trying to get on Google, look at where the search volume is, right? Sure, you may want to rank for these very specific terms with these very niche products that you have, but is anyone searching it? If they're not, then there's no point, right? Or unless you plan on like blowing up your brand awareness at some point in time, but realistically, the amount of money it takes to do that for a small business, they probably don't have that to kind of just dump versus like a huge business who has that type of influence. But looking at that keyword research and going like, okay, it looks like a lot of people are searching up drinking snacks, right? If you don't typically call it drinking snacks and you call it something else, perhaps you should start adding that in your content and kind of like creating content around the key terms that you're seeing that there is content with, right? The higher level concept there is just responding to the market, right? You're there to serve consumers. I think a really cool quote, 2 really cool quotes I got from This is Marketing by Seth Godin that I feel like really encapsulates what good digital marketing is, or good marketing in general. The first one is, marketers don't use consumers to solve their company's problems. They use marketing to solve other people's problems. So with that being said, you're kind of in the space to solve a problem, right? If you create a business and you're just solving your own problem, that's not a business, that's a hobby. That's something you're building for yourself, right? So check out the digital space. If you're trying to go on a particular channel, check out what's working on there and build stuff around that rather than taking insights from these like random articles and stuff like that and just blindly applying it to you or to your own business, right? See what's working and build that foundation.
So if I want to do some keyword research, and I know from the bootcamp we can do it in Google, but what are some resources you would recommend? I'm a small business person. Where should I do that?
Yeah, like you mentioned, you could do some keyword research on Google. You can jump on AdWords and actually check out their keyword planner tool. Although a lot of those keywords are kind of more or that tool is optimized for finding paid keywords. You can still find some organic keywords on there as well. But the best thing I would recommend, like if you have the budget, and I would highly, highly recommend that you do this, is to get just a trial or a month of a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs, which is like a SEO Swiss Army knife. Because what they do is they have a huge database of search engine data and they compile it in a way that's digestible. And I myself use SEMrush, and I go in their keyword magic tool and essentially just look up the industry, and then I examine their, what are people asking? What are people searching? How can we create content that answers these questions? And how can we optimize currently what we have to kind of speak to those different points that people are searching for, right? So I would highly recommend doing that and understand SEO and paid search and stuff like that. Search engine marketing as a whole takes time, right? So When you're doing keyword research, this is a really, really handy mental model that I keep in mind just to make it a little easier so you don't get like data paralysis and looking at all these numbers. Think about your keyword research process as like a tree map. If you think about it, if you search for food, that's a crazy broad term, right? Way too broad. You're never gonna rank for food in, well, I'm sure someone can, but like it's crazy to try to rank for something like that, right? But adding modifiers to your keywords, so meaning like if you want to like getting more specific from it, so like Japanese food or Japanese snacks for drinking, adding modifiers in there typically decreases the amount of search volume because it makes it more specific. However, it makes it less competitive because you're dealing with more specific subjects. So if you visualize like a tree chart, right, highest part of the tree is probably like food as a topic, right? Huge amount of search volume, but not realistic to try to rank for. And the very, very bottom, you have probably like drinking buddy, ryu senbei, chili oil, rice crackers,
Which
I'm
nobody
sure,
is searching for except me.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully it'll get to a point where there's more search volume, but at that level, there's not really much competition, right? So it's finding that balance, and that's what I would recommend for anyone who's trying to step into the search engine marketing space and understanding your quote unquote digital space.
So for other small businesses in the food and beverage space, don't try and rank for beer. You want to be the craft brewery that makes this product that's in this neighborhood. You want to be the coffee shop that makes, single source, amazing coffee just down the street from you. And it's relevant to the person, not I am the coffee shop. There's no other coffee shop.
Yeah, just be more specific with your niche, right? And to piggyback off that tip, the second tip that I have would be don't try to reinvent the wheel until you've built one from scratch first. There's so many fantastic, I just told you not to listen to blogs and stuff and carelessly implement it, but there's a lot of really good blogs out there that are guides. And with that being said, there is a fundamental checklist that you should have in place for your digital presence, like having a website, right? Having social media, being present on social media channels and all that good stuff. Most businesses don't even have like the fundamentals of their website set up, and they're already trying to promote their website. I get it, like minimum viable product. But if the foundation of your minimal viable product was based on like bad assumptions, then you'll end up with a miscalculated, vague product, right? Instead of something that'll work for you. So with that being said, make sure the foundations of your digital marketing presence is set up correctly. So having your data set up correctly, Google Analytics, if you're doing Facebook pixels, if you're doing, if you're optimizing for speed for your website, make sure, you have a good host, make sure you're optimizing your images, make sure all the fundamentals are down first before you try 500 hacks to try in 2021 for your website to try to rank it, right? You should have that foundation built first.
That makes sense. I have a coach that helps me with the website, and everything you're saying is stuff that we've done together. Don't have a massive file type for an image when you can do a much smaller one that'll load much faster, because what does the consumer ultimately need? They just need a basic image. They don't need a giant file that's going to slow down the website. They're not there to look at pictures. They want the information. They want it quick.
Exactly. And then the second point, I guess, would be data literate. That is such a huge skill. I think as a small business owner, jumping into this sure can get very, very overwhelming, and there's like a lot of data out there, and you'll probably run into some data paralysis where you just don't know because there's so many numbers in front of you. It happens to the best of us. But stick it out, and try to comb through the data. Try to understand what each one of these data pieces are talking about. So let's say, like, for example, you're doing some analysis on Google Analytics, right? The platform is pretty user-friendly, but there's a bunch of data on there. And I think a lot of business owners try to dive into this themselves, but they don't know where to go from it. So a good framework that I personally use and I try to tell everyone to use when looking at data is a 3-point framework. It's data, obviously have the data, have accurate data. The second point is get some insight from your data, meaning, okay, I'm looking at a conversion rate of 2% or something, right? Okay, conversion rate of 2%. What insight does that give us? What's the context behind that? What campaign were you running? Were you targeting a specific audience? What's the value of that? What does that mean in dollars for you, right? And then from there, the last point is action. What are you going to do about this, right? So data, have the data, insight, what's it mean? What's the context? And then action. What action are you going to take from that insight? If you've ever been pitched by a agency and they're like, I did an audit on your website and check out these KPIs, we found out that you have blah, 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 this bounce rate, this session, this conversion rate. It's like, okay, I can read Google Analytics too. That doesn't mean anything to me. What insights do you have for me from that, right? What are you going to do about these numbers? I think it's really easy for small business owners when they're approached by these digital marketers to get caught up in the fancy metrics. It's called vanity metrics, right? But not really understand what it necessarily means. So being data literate will really, really help you in the long term, just as someone who owns a website and has data coming in. It'll allow you to kind of pivot and understand what consumers are saying and how you can pivot your strategy, as well as not be caught off guard by some shady marketers who, are just flashing vanity metrics in front of you and trying to make a quick buck.
No, it's very true. I get emails all the time from people, especially on LinkedIn. It's sort of notorious for that. They're always, oh, I just saw that you got a website and blah, blah, blah. I just delete them. Because it's like you said, they might have a bunch of stuff that they claim they can do, or they might have some data, but they don't really have a strategy or any action to take on the data. They just look, I do all these things, and they list 20 different aspects of digital marketing that they do. And they talk about your website, but they don't give you anything. They're like, you should do this, this, and this. And I think for me, if I saw that, if they said, here's 5 things I think you should actually do based on what we did, then I would look at them, but they never do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's unfortunately, there's this kind of build a system and scale kind of mentality. I feel like that's growing in the digital marketing space, where you run one campaign and become successful, and then suddenly you've built a course and you're like, let me teach you how to scale your e-commerce business. And because of that one experience, extrapolate it as in every single business should succeed based off of that one single model, which makes no sense, because all your content, just the fact that you're in a certain industry should change your entire strategy. Just the fact that your product niche is a certain thing should change your entire strategy, because it should be catered to your business, right? However, that takes time. I don't know how quote unquote scalable it is to do it for 100 clients in a day, when you're one person, but that's how it should be. Every strategy should be unique to your business. Speaking of that, my next tip for small businesses would be keeping in mind that content is king. Yes, content is king, but it's 2021, baby. Intent is queen, you know what I'm saying? Market for humans. No one cares that you're trying to rank for Escondido's #1 pancake house, okay? They just want the pancakes, you know what I'm saying? They're on Google. They don't go I wonder who's ranking #1. No, they just want the freaking pancakes, right? So with that being said, understand the mindset of your consumer. Understand their user journey, right? Let's say for Drinking Buddy, for example. Question for you, Frank. So people who listen to your podcast and stuff like that, have you taken a look at your search console or anything? Have you seen any keywords that people are searching up to kind of find your website?
No, it's a good question. I actually am always curious about that. So where would I go to look at that?
You won't find too much on Google Analytics. You'll probably find more in Google Search Console, which is actual search terms, because there's a difference between a keyword and a search term. A search term is what people actually search verbatim in Google. So going on Google Search Console and seeing what people are actually searching to get on your website. It'll also give you an idea of what keywords you're ranking for too. But the point of that is looking at those keywords and thinking, okay, what is the actual intent behind this keyword? If a lot of people are searching up what is senbei, what is Ryu senbei, right? If that's what you're ranking for and people are clicking on your website because of that, then it means there's search volume behind that. And it means something on your site is fulfilling that intent, right? Or else Google wouldn't rank you and that person wouldn't click. So focus on intent, focus on what people are searching for and what their general kind of mindset is. In search engine marketing, there's 3 primary, there's definitely others like sub like intents and stuff like that, but there's 3 primary search intents. And the first one would be informational, which is someone trying to find information about something, trying to learn something, looking for a guide, like how to this, how to that, and all that good stuff. The second one is navigational, which is if you're trying to get somewhere on the web, right? Like let's say you're trying to log into Chase or something, right? So if you search up Chase portal, that would be an example of a navigational intent. And the last intent is transactional. So someone that's looking up something and they're ready to buy, they're ready to go, right? Like if they're looking up jet skis for sale near me or something, right? That would be transactional intent. So seeing what intent is most prevalent in your space and for your website and scaling and kind of creating more content around that to build your keyword bank that you're ranking for.
Interestingly enough, looking at Google Search Console right now, the highest number of impressions and clicks in my performance report is for artisan snacks. So that's good. It means that people are looking for maybe a fancier snack than what you get at the grocery store are landing on my page. So that's exactly what I want. But then I see below that, a lot of people are just probably bumping into the website because there's stuff related to Drinking Buddy, Drink Buddy, other stuff related to Buddy. So, I mean, I'm not mad. That's part of the reason I picked the name. It's a very common phrase. I didn't want to have a oddly specific name that nobody would understand.
Right, exactly. And that's fantastic though. Like you said, artisan snacks, that should be the case. If you're looking at your keywords and you're ranking for stuff that makes no sense to your business, that means you got to change something on your website, right? The intent isn't matching with who you want to be on there. And so now that artisanal snacks is something that you're ranking for, you can do some keyword research around that, right? You can type in artisanal snacks on Google and take a look at their autocomplete. What are people also adding on to the end of that keyword? What are some synonyms for artisanal snacks? Are there any synonyms that are more relevant to your website? And you can start building out content using that information. And it kind of brings it back to that whole thing about understanding your digital space. Let the data guide you and having the foundation there to accept that data, right? When it's brought to you, understanding and being able to read that data and then making sure you satisfy that intent. So I would say those are probably my top 4 high-level tips for small businesses who are jumping into digital marketing. Just to recap, understand your industry's digital space. Don't try to reinvent the wheel until you built one from scratch. Be data literate. And content is king, but intent is queen.
Thanks so much to Mark Auyoung. Find out more about Mark by checking the links in our episode description.
One last thing. If someone pitches you SEO and their main selling point is ranking you number 1 for keywords, run. Just exit out of that call immediately. Nobody can do that. And if they claim they can, they are lying to you.
Thanks for listening to The Drinking Buddy Show. Be sure to subscribe and share it with your buddies. Check out our latest artisanal snack offerings at www.thedrinkingbuddyshop.com. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Take care and drink well.